focus in this winter session of Parliament has been on the uproar and slanging matches between the government and the opposition. One bill has been passed that is being protested around the country. The Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill aims to give transgender Indians legal identity and rights, but is being protested for failing at protecting even basic rights. What is the contention all about? To speak on this, I am joined now by noted transgender rights activist Laxmi Narayan and Senior Advocate and Executive Director at Centre for Law and Policy Research, Jayna Kothari. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for speaking with us today at Bloomberg Quint. Laxmi, what is the concern with the bill? First, do you have concerns with the bill? Because going through it, it at the very least gives legal identity to transgender Indians, which was missing until now.
See, basically, for us, the bill, we thought the bill was really very good, and the ministry had assured that the bill would be really good after the ministry had agreed to take in the comments of the standing committee. But the saddest part, the basic NALSA judgment, the National Legal Services Authority versus Supreme Court of India 2014 judgments, basic judgment in itself is put to a question, that there will be a screening committee by the doctor. You need to change your, you should go through operations, and you should need to go to the civil surgeon. I don't understand, when the Honorable Supreme Court has said that I have the right to, declare my own gender and my own identity, where does the state comes in between? And the second, the biggest thing, that without a single program which is helping the transgender community, the Hijra culture, the Kinnar culture, which are into the Badhai system, you didn't even accept the Guru Chela Parampara as a family system in the bill. The tradition has been missing. You all have put begging. What kind of begging? Then begging in itself is in Supreme Court. Still, the case has not been heard about it, and you are making policies on it. What kind of a bill this can be, where a community took so many years, the last community which got its right as an Indian, and without even getting its rights and dues, you're making them criminals again. No,
but one sec, Laxmi. If you read through the bill, and I'm going to come to Jayna over here also, because I've been seeing that this is the contention all around. Two things. One is self-determination of gender and making begging a criminal offense. But Jayna, if you read the bill, it allows self-determination of gender, though it also talks about a screening committee, but it does allow self-determination of gender, and it says that anyone forcing transgender people to beg will be held liable.
If I can respond to that, see, the self-identification of gender, the provisions in the bill are highly problematic, and I'll explain why. Now, what the Supreme Court held is that every person has the constitutional right to self-identify themselves as either male, female, or transgender. Now, what the bill actually does is that the bill doesn't protect the right to self-identification in that way. It only says that a transgender person has the right to self-identify one's gender, but you can make an application to the district magistrate for recognition as a transgender person. Now, that I would say is the first problem. There are many transgender and intersex persons who actually seek to recognize themselves as either male or female, and that provision is not there. And the next thing is, how does one self-identify themselves? It should be by your own self-declaration, right? If I decide that my self-identified gender is, say, as female, I should be able to go and say, give me this certificate recognizing me as a woman. But what the provision says is that there is a district screening committee with 5 members. One is a medical officer, one is a psychiatrist, one is a social welfare officer, and only one representative from the transgender community. Thereafter, it goes on to say that if you have sex reassignment surgery to change your gender, then you have to provide the medical documents. So therefore, the implication is that you can get this change of gender identity only after medical and psychological treatments. Now that actually goes totally against human rights principles of self-recognition of gender identity. I mean, basically the whole idea of having a screening committee made up of medical officers and psychiatrists is the law trying to prescribe that your decided gender identity will not be accepted unless you show that you've undergone medical treatment. Now, there are many transgender and intersex persons who don't go through treatment for a variety of reasons. It's unaffordable. They don't wish to go through it. There's no access to it. So,
and moreover, if you don't think of it as an ailment that needs to be treated, you may not want to go in for medical treatment. It is about your own identity and how you perceive yourself.
And so the world over, if you see a lot of the transgender rights legislations and gender recognition laws, none of the new legislations the world over have screening committees or the requirements for medical certificates. All of them say, some of the most progressive legislations are in Argentina, the Gender Recognition Act, which says that you should be able to give a self-declaratory affidavit to say that I now want to recognize my gender as this. And you should be able to get your legal, documents changed to reflect your new gender and name. Now, this bill doesn't do that. And that is actually the biggest lacuna or the biggest problem with the bill. Because the core of the rights
I'll come back to you, Jayna. I'll come back to you in a bit on the question of begging, because there seems to be, different views over there whether begging has been criminalized or not. But meanwhile, Laxmi, let me ask you the basic question. As per the 2011 census, there are nearly 5 lakh transgender individuals in India. This bill, at the very least, says that they should have the same rights as all Indian citizens to education, to work. There can be no discrimination. Would you laud that? Would you say at least that's a positive start in a country where, transgenders often find no space?
It is not about start. After 70 years, of getting a right as an Indian, after we went to the Supreme Court, I was the intervener in the Nalsa judgment. This whole bill is contempt of the Nalsa judgment whole and soul. And why should I be satisfied in one thing? They don't even accept our communities, our subgroups in the traditional communities of the transgender anywhere in the bill where the Supreme Court verdict recognizes it. And then how dare you make us criminals? Is there a law, is there a policy, or is there a bill for making men and women who are into begging criminals?
Tell me about this criminal thing. Jayna, tell me about this criminal thing.
Why?
One sec. Because what I read in the bill, it says that it will be criminal to compel or entice a transgender person to indulge in the act of begging or other similar forms of forced or bonded labor other than any compulsory service for public purpose imposed by government. It is silent on voluntary begging.
Can I say something?
Yes, Laxmi.
No, but
yes, Laxmi
See,
first.
the problem is it's silent. The problem is that this is a very small community of traditional people, and the problem what happens with this community is that sometimes it is a Guru Chela Parampara. It doesn't recognize that. The Chelas, it is all means if the Guru dies, the entire property comes to the Chela. Nobody is talking about inheritance over here, how the inheritance will take. Then afterwards, the Guru is responsible for everything what the Chela does. The Chela may tomorrow go out and say, my Guru is forcing me to beg. The Guru will be in the jail, then the Chela will take over. So how you deal with this kind of situation? Tomorrow, my traditional, the Badhai system, the Naik system has not been mentioned over there. Why it is not mentioned? Why you all are killing the tradition of the community?
Okay.
In the name of modernism and giving rights, if you are giving access to education, if you are giving reservation, where is your workplace policy? Where is your, why don't you talk about an officer doing a discrimination? Then how they will be punished? How, if a doctor does a wrong treatment, how he will be taken in consideration under punishment. And then afterwards, at times in the history in country has shown that doctors have felt transgender bodies as experiment, like we are pigs.
Okay. No, absolutely.
Why there is not
wrongs need to be
why
righted.
there is.
I'm just trying to understand the legal contentions to the bill. Jayna, I want you to come in on the question of begging and where the lacunae there lies.
Yeah, so I'll just respond to these two issues. One is on the provision of begging, because it makes an offense that if anybody compels a transgender person to indulge in begging, see the way what Laxmi said, and also the way it will work is it's not as if the transgender community has that many other work or employment options. Many of them are on the streets, having no other recourse but to beg on the streets. Now, what this will lead to is that it will definitely lead to situations where many members of the trans community can be arrested for committing the offense of compelling other members of the trans community to get into begging. Now, that is a highly problematic situation, particularly when you also don't have provisions like reservation for education and employment. So, the other parts of the bill that you also asked earlier, that it gives people equal rights into education and employment. The bill, while it says that no one will be discriminated in education or employment, non-discrimination is fine. But how are they even going to get their foot in unless there is reservation?
Reservation is a completely different question. But when you come to reservation, then you'll go back to the Constitution, which says that there can be a reservation only on certain parameters, which are caste-based, etc. So then you're talking about a whole different ball game.
So no. But excuse me, the Mandal Ayog had already said it has to be on a socio-economic situation, but these parliamentarians, for their political benefit, brought the caste and everything in between. A community from 70 years who never, after being Republic of India, we didn't have our rights. Our rights are so much due to be given, and still they talk about this kind of a bill, and it's shameful. This bill cannot be accepted by the community. And it's sad it got passed the way it got passed in the Lok Sabha.
Absolutely.
Was shameful.
No, absolutely. Because in the middle of Rafale and other political issues, it sort of just got swept through. It's passed in the Lok Sabha. It still has to go through the Rajya Sabha process. I think just one more important point to talk about is the quantum of punishment, which is 6 months to 2 years. And I think this is one part which really needs to be re-looked at. And let me come to Jayna first about it. That for everything, the punishment is from 6 months to 2 years, including sexual violence, which of course attracts much higher punishment as is needed in the cases of women.
Yeah, no, if you see these offenses, I mean, I definitely think that the the offense and punishment for begging has completely to be removed, because you're criminalizing this whole activity. The second thing you asked is about any sexual abuse or physical abuse or verbal or economic abuse. Now, the question is that you already have offenses of sexual or physical abuse in the Indian Penal Code, right? And often the penalties for those offenses in the Penal Code are much higher. So why do you need a separate offense here when in any event, if there, it could be a criminal offense of physical or sexual abuse against anybody. Indian Penal Code covers it. Hello?
Yes. Just to round this off, Laxmi, what would you like to be seen in the bill as clear additions, and what do you think needs to be taken out?
See, the whole bill needs to be, we went continuously with the Ministry of Social Justice to be a part in the drafting committee. They didn't include the community. There is no inclusion of the tradition of the community. There is no inclusion of reservation. The last community who has been socio-economically so backwards. Then you talk about a begging issue is there. That means you want us to be in sex work. That means sex work again, it's so much things which is depriving us as a community, in spite of such a beautiful NALSA judgment after having in 2014. This bill doesn't covers anything, and why a doctor and a psychiatrist is needed. If you need a screening committee, it can be of social activists and community members. If you don't want, if your intentions is that our identity and our what rights we are getting is not been misused by any others, so you should call the community to be part of it. And then it's all haywire. You cannot have a bill which doesn't talks about preserving a tradition, preserving the dignity of the person. Again, you're putting the community into humiliation in the hands of the mainstream society, where still there is so much of stigma and discrimination and preconceived notions which is still prevailing at large.
No, absolutely. I think mainstreaming transgender individuals is also important while preserving their heritage, and at the end of the day, a law, however imperfect or perfect, will not do the trick. We all will need to pitch in and try to right this social injustice. Thank you so much, Laxmi Narayan and Jayna Kothari, for speaking with us today.